Michigan State starts the day white hot. They get Ed Woods over Alabama for a potential starting cornerback. But then the rest of the day happened where Michigan State lost 4 more players to the transfer portal, including 2 starters. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on the classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go for free on the App Store or Google Play. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below how you're feeling about today. I know that we've got a mixed bag of emotions out there in East Lansing, but hey, if you want to just voice those opinions to the void, comment below or reach out to us at lockedonspartans@gmail.com. All right, busy first segment before we get to segments 2 and 3, which will be a chat with Chase Glasser of Spartans Illustrated. You guys may or may not know who Chase is, but he is great at X's and O's. We talk about the spring game, what he loved out of it. And while we did talk yesterday before this big influx of transfers today, I don't think it screwed up that much of the conversation, so stick around for segments 2 and 3. All right, away we go. Hey, guys, this day started really good for Michigan State, and this was about a player that we talked about on yesterday's show, Arizona State transfer cornerback Ed Woods. Now, we talked that, hey, this was just already going well for Michigan State, the fact they even got him on campus, because where was he before, East Lansing? Tuscaloosa. Checking out Alabama. And guys, let's fast forward to the finish line here. Ed Woods on Tuesday commits to Michigan State and the Spartans, giving Jonathan Smith and company a legitimate transfer portal win over the Crimson Tide. Like, this wasn't a thing where Alabama just said, oh, no, we actually don't want him anymore after that visit. No, they still wanted him. And hey, Jonathan Smith and co, they get a day one starter potentially. I would assume that he's going to be a day one starter here over at corner. Now, a little bit about Ed Woods. Let's go through the measurables here. 6 foot, 180-pound redshirt senior out of Arizona State. So he is coming here with experience and the goods too. He was a 13-game starter for the Sun Devils, started 4 games last year. Would have been 5 if he didn't have to serve a targeting suspension, but that's just semantics. Here's the number that you will all like. Pro Football Focus gave him a coverage grade of 77.4. Now, for those that don't know, Pro Football Focus, or PFF as a lot of you know it, they know their ball. All right. I take a lot of stock in what they have to say. Maybe you're a little different, but nevertheless, 77.4 coverage grade is 6th best amongst Pac-12 cornerbacks last year, and that was the best on Arizona State. So when he left the Sun Devils program, we talked about this on yesterday's show. This was not one of those portal moves where the coaching staff is pushing him out just so they can get a replacement in there. Like, no, this was somewhat of a surprise to Arizona State head coach Kenny Dillingham, and we welcome that. So nice little pickup for, of course, Joe Rossi, Demetrius Martin, and Blue Adams. So what does it mean? Guys, you've heard us talk about it the last few weeks. There is a need for cornerback here, whether it's just a starting corner, which is presumably what they got right here, or even just depth. Guys, like, it is a little skinny depth-wise with guys that are experienced in college football. And again, 5th-year senior Ed Woods, you got it in there. All right, then a few more hours went by. And I'll address the elephant in the room if you are a loyal listener of this show. Yesterday we said, hey, Tuesday, last day of the transfer portal, don't suspect any big names, haven't heard anything. And then roughly about 90 minutes after recording that and publishing it, started to hear a few names of people that could be entering the portal. So here they are. It's Jaden Mangham. All right, that's your starting safety right there. Jaren Mangham, his brother, running back. We'll get to that later. And then 2 offensive linemen, Ethan Boyd, Geno VanDeMark. Now, before we go any further here, guys, all right, if there's one thing that I just want to bark out into the green and white void right now, just allow me to do this. And I'm not saying that this is a good day. That good riddance to those players, they aren't that good anyway. Or that, hey, you guys should actually be happy. Or that you shouldn't be very frustrated with how the last few days, if not weeks, if not months, have gone for Michigan State in the transfer portal. I'm not going to tell you how to feel outright. But I do want to remind people, and maybe shine a bit of a light on it, that this is what happens during rebuilds. And let's make no mistake about it. I know that there's conflicting opinions on that right now, but guys, I'll shoot you straight. This is a rebuild. Okay, Michigan State hasn't been to a bowl game in the last 2 years. There is some massive work inside the program that has to be done that Jonathan Smith is overtaking. Roster turnover like this happens. I know the number is upwards of 35 transfers for Michigan State so far since Jonathan Smith stepped foot on campus. Hey guys, you know who else has had over 30 transfers? Alabama during their regime change down there. Washington is up at 28. Those were two teams in the college football playoffs that also just have really solid rosters to begin with because of Michigan State's 35 players. I mean, some of those are guys that had to have been excused from the program so they could bring in some Big Ten caliber players. But nevertheless, I know this sucks. I know this is annoying. But this happens, whether it's the play on the field you want to make sure you have right, or just the culture fit that you want as you are building a roster. Roster attrition happens all over the place. Now, I will say, this day would have been a whole lot easier on everyone if the bulk of this roster attrition just happened a few months ago in December, right? Not at midnight of the transfer portal cycle, okay? Like, let's not get it twisted. I know why people are a little upset. If this happened a few months ago, like it should have, though, I don't think that there's this massive outcry or wondering, oh my God, is the program going to survive? Because, yeah, sometimes you need to tear down the walls to build things back up. I'm sorry. And maybe this is a readjustment of expectations for you out there. I've always been in the barn that, hey, I think 7-5 this year would be a really successful season. If you're out there thinking 9-3 was going to happen, I mean, okay, then in that case, yeah, something like today or the last few weeks will set you back a few pegs. But nevertheless, let's get into the players that have defected from Michigan State today. We're going to go with 19th year senior, batting first, Jaden Mangham. That was obviously over-exaggerated. His 6th year senior, started his career at Colorado, then South Florida, then Michigan State last year. 6 games played. His first 6, he was hurt. He got 30 carries last year, 81 yards, and he might have been the 4th running back on this year's depth chart, okay? I don't think all of us are crying into our cereal this morning or tonight, whenever you're listening to this, because Jaden Mangham has left. Now, Jaden Mangham, his younger brother that came here as a 4-star recruit, got early playing time as a true freshman. That's one that sucks, right? Like, there's no way around it. That is a starting safety, 10-game starter from last year. And sure, like, Dylan Tatum could slide into that role of free safety, right? Play with him alongside Malik Spencer. And that is if Tatum and Spencer are still on the team. I have not heard anything about those two players leaving, but I have to timestamp this right now. We're talking a little bit before 8 p.m. on Tuesday. So if there are any surprises in the next 4 hours before the portal window closes, I will catch up to it tomorrow. Anyway, sure, you got Dylan Tatum right there. But here is a big issue with guys also not leaving in December. It's not just, for the mental stability of us fans that we could just stomach this punch easier. It's also that depth has now gotten shredded because what else has happened this spring transfer portal cycle? Safety Omarion Smith, he's out, and then Sean Brown also out. That's 2 safeties, guys. Let's say Jaden Mangham, he leaves in the winter. Okay, at least you got those 2 guys battling for a safety position. Maybe one guy moves up to the backup safety and not just a 3rd-string safety, and that's enough to keep him around. But nevertheless, depth is a little hairy there because, look, Malik Spencer, obviously a good player. Dylan Tatum, by all accounts, he will hold his own at the safety position. But, guys, there are injuries in football, and God forbid any of those 2 guys, turn a knee or anything. It might be me or you playing safety out there this year. So let's move on to the offensive line. Ethan Boyd. Now, this is a name that we know, 3-game starter last year, 313 snaps on offense. And you could take this for, however big of a grain of salt you want, but the rumors out of camp were that Ashton Lepo is beating him out for that tackle position. So maybe it's a thing where he slides to the backup role. He doesn't like that. He's hopefully on to more playing time at his next stop. But nevertheless, we're not chalking this up as wasn't going to play a lot here anyway, because that is a lot of snaps walking out that door, 313 snaps. And let's move on to the biggest name, in my opinion, that is leaving here. Geno VanDeMark, 6 starts last year, 284 snaps on the line. And yeah, of course, slated to be a starter this year in one of those guard positions. I believe right guard is where he was going to be slated at, with Tanner Miller at center and then Luke Newman at left guard. Now, I imagine this slides up Big Dooley Christian Phillips to that starting role, and he had a good spring game. We had a lot of good things to say about Big Dooley in that spring game, but nevertheless, guys, here we go again. The depth in the interior offensive line, oh my. Dallas Fincher, okay, fine, backup center. I'm sure he could play one of the guard positions too if he has to. 180 snaps in his career. All right, decent, fine. Christian Phillips, 33 snaps in his college career. Gavin Brocious, 0 snaps in his college career. Cole Dellinger, former 4-star recruit, but 0 snaps in his college career. So it's not just the guys leaving, the guys or the names that it's what this does to everyone behind him. Like, depth is very thin around the roster right now. With that said, there's a lot of portal season left, and I know that the window closes on Tuesday. For those that don't know, you have to get your paperwork in if you want to leave by Tuesday at midnight, okay? You still have the next few weeks, though, to find your next home. And Michigan State is going to have no shortage of visitors in the next few weeks here to try to plug many of these holes in the depth chart. But there it is, guys. I'm not going to rant as much because, well, for a few reasons. One, we got to get to our chat with Chase Glasser here in a little bit. 2, you've heard me, cry and moan about the transfer portal right after the Simeon Barrow and Derek Harmon departures. And guys, 3rd, as a State fan, in the last 365 days, I don't even know if today ranks in the top 30 as most annoying days that we've had to go through. So maybe it's just for lack of passion about this, or maybe I'm just beaten down by the transfer portal like the rest of you guys are. But nevertheless, that's the news. Guys, roster turnover has to happen in a rebuild. That is what Michigan State is in right now. And no, Jonathan Smith has not lost the program. It's going to be okay eventually, okay? It's just going to be a slow burn to getting back to where Michigan State needs to be. All right, in with Chase Glasser in a hot segment. First, need to talk your ears off about FanDuel Sportsbook. It's winner take all time in the NBA, NHL, and hey, well, MLB is going to be there before we even know it, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home the big win of your own. Guys, it's so easy. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That is $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, same game parlays for the NBA, or hey, my favorite bet for the NBA is method of first basket. It's like guessing the first basket score, but juiced up on steroids. The other day, Austin Reeves, 28-1 to hit a three-pointer to start the game. It didn't hit at all. But man, $5 to pay out whatever 5 times 28 is, that was a nice little way to spice up the start of the NBA game. So, folks, what are you waiting for out there? Visit FanDuel.com/lockdown and make every playoff shot count. It's FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Folks, if you want to get to know football from the X's and O's standpoint, we got the professor on here. It is Chase Glasser of Spartans Illustrated. Oh, he's laughing like he doesn't deserve that title. Come on, Chase. You are the best out there, my man. How you doing? You doing okay?
I'm doing great. You're far too kind.
That is sensational to hear. Now, guys, I want to get ahead of this. I want a full peek behind the curtain and be very transparent. Chase and I are talking Monday afternoon right now. When you're listening to this, it is either Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. But, guys, it's a full day before the portal closes. We will be talking about what Chase saw at the spring showcase, maybe mention a few players. I learned a very valuable lesson last year, though, of how dangerous this could be, pre-recording an interview before the portal closes. Because last year, 3 days before it closed, I did a pre-recorded interview with Odell Brethem Jr., one of my favorite people to talk with. And we talked about how great it's going to be to have Keon Coleman play for Michigan State that year. And then what do you know? Probably 48 to 72 hours after we had that interview, he's out of here. Had to do a lot of editing that night. That was not fun. So, guys, I don't suspect any major names maybe in the portal, but in this day and age, things can get squirrely. If we mention a player that is no longer here by the time you're listening to this, I'm sorry, but chatting Monday just worked best in my schedule, so that is why we are doing this. With that said, Chase as the guest of honor, we're talking spring showcase. You did a fantastic film room piece for Spartans Illustrated. We're not going to give it all away because you got to subscribe to get the goods. But do you want to start offense or defense first here for Michigan State? You get to pick.
Let's go offense.
Let's do it. That is what I'm talking about. So kicking things off, look, you're very measured. You have a very calm head between the ears. let's get away from that though. Let's have an overreaction to Aiden Childs because I think he threw the ball 14 times. Should he just hit the transfer portal? Should he is it good riddance to him, or is he going to win the Heisman this year, Chase? Which one is it?
Well, if you want my take, I watched a lot of Big Ten spring games,
okay.
And it appears, I'm sure this will get clipped in late November, and I'll look like an idiot. But it appears that Ohio State ran off Kyle McCord for no overly compelling reason.
Yeah.
I think Michigan could be pretty nasty if they ran the single wing and never throw the football, because I just don't think they're going to have a functional passing offense with a quarterback on the roster. Easily the worst spring game that I saw was the Drew Aller Penn State tape.
Not good.
So I don't think it's absurd to think that with the sample size of quarterbacks in the upper echelon of the Big Ten. Now, I'm saying traditional Big Ten here. It does occur to me that you have Miller Moss and I think Dylan Gabriel at Oregon and USC. So, there's that. But out of the kind of traditional Big Ten teams, I think it is not unreasonable to say that Childs may be the best. He looked really good. He looked sharp. The mobility, the arm strength, you saw it. He got through progressions pretty well. There was a couple times where you could tell he was a young quarterback. He sailed some passes. He tried a couple really advanced throws.
Yes.
We talked about this. So up on Spartans Illustrated, we've changed the film room a little bit, kind of came to the realization that people don't necessarily want to read 3,500 words and a bunch of GIFs that you have to click through. So we have a 46-minute video that's just kind of a real-time breakdown of the spring game. We watch a highlight package, kind of break down every play. In the future, I think we're going to go more to let's have an 8-minute video on the run offense and cut up some plays. And, awesome. It'll grow and progress as kind of we get better at this. But a lot of the discussion was focused on Childs, and he tried a couple NFL throws that I think will come in time next year, maybe year after. You'll see him hit those. He tried a couple really tough layering throws that just comes with time. Mm-hmm. But I think immediately you see the arm strength, you see the athleticism, and I think the confidence. He threw over the middle of the field a lot. And that's, if you can attack the middle of the field against split safeties, which you're going to see a lot of, or if you have kind of the courage to fit a post route underneath cover 1, cover 3, that's a lot of that's just moxie and having the guts and the confidence in yourself to pull that trigger. So I was quite impressed with what I saw. I think immediate upgrade, and I think Childs is going to be really good in this offense.
Speaking of upgrade, we need an upgrade in the run game. You spent a good portion of the film room, obviously, breaking down some of the great runs early on in the spring showcase, too, that Nate Carter run.
Certainly.
Optimism for the run game this year? Look, obviously, let's not get ahead of our skis here. I don't want to be overreactionary, and I know it's very ironic because I can be, obviously. But they even said after the spring showcase, this was all vanilla stuff on both offense and defense, and it was only a handful of plays. But nevertheless, is there something schematically that you saw in the run game throughout that afternoon that could have you thinking that it's going to be better than last year? And also, I know that it's pretty much the bars on the floor right now from last year, but let's not let that get in the way.
I think everything that you just said was true. It was really vanilla. That is very true. When we did kind of our initial breakdown a couple months ago, we talked a lot about window dressing and all of the post-snap frippery with people and pre-snap with people in motion, post-snap with people kind of crossing all over the place and messing with keys and things like that. You didn't see any of that. I guarantee that you are going to see a lot of that. So it was just pretty much inside and outside zone. I thought that from an offensive line perspective, they looked fairly cohesive. I understand some guys were out, but they were still effective in that. I thought they were fairly well executed. People were blocked up. There was one outside zone that I think Berger made a nice cut. Certainly a cut that is not specific to Berger's ability to make with him in the portal. I think Carter would be just fine. But where the end man on the line of scrimmage, there was a lot of tight end usages. Tight ends both attached and detached from the line, split out, where a tight end kind of down blocked, recognized the blitzer, popped off, and picked up somebody who was coming from kind of the nickel spot. And Berger just hit one cut and took a guy for about 8-9 yards. That's reps, that's practice, just having that kind of peripheral vision recognition. Very impressive. I will say when we talk about the defense, I am worried about the run defense. And that was before both interior defensive linemen went in the portal. So it's a little bit tough to tell, okay, is this offensive line much better? I think they are better. I think we can qualitatively say these guys are better.
Okay.
How much better? I just don't think we're going to know until we're about halfway through September. Just because again, it was vanilla. They were pretty much just in a base 3-4, 4-3. Nothing really fancy going on. Some blitzes, but nothing overly exotic. So it's hard to say, but just I was not overly enamored with the run defense. I think there's going to be some issues there. So it's a little bit tough to tell, but what I can tell you is that Nathan Carter is still very good. That I thought the offense was just, they had a coherent ethos. I like that. And there's a lot of stuff that you're going to see built off of a lot of in-breaking stuff over the middle of the field.
Okay.
I guess moving away from Childs a little bit, Marsh looks like he's going to be a player.
Yes.
Just big, physical, strong. I thought Montori Foster had a really good spring game.
Yeah.
He had a couple just skinny post, get a cornerback on your back, make a strong catch, eat a hit from a safety, and keep going.
Right.
That was impressive. And then the tight end usage is going to be real. I think most of the starting tight end room was not really playing, but you're going to see a lot with that. And my arrow is pointing up on the offense quite a bit.
Back with Chase Glasser here in a hot segment, but we got to take a pause here and talk more about Monopoly Go. And I know what you're saying, flag on the play. You've already talked about that. Not just today to start the show, but also the last few weeks, Matt. What are you doing here? But there is so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get, like unique stickers you could trade with your friend to complete albums for big prizes, or cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, and hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. That's right. It's all up to you. You can either play alongside your friends or you can kind of sabotage them. Be a mixed bag out there if you want. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasures or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download for free right now on Google Play or the App Store. It's game on with Monopoly Go. Now, unfortunately, you kind of alluded to where I wanted to start the defensive conversation because, hey, the runs were great for the offense. Like, it's the ultimate catch-22 with the spring game, right? Like, hey, as the offense craters, the defense kind of struggling. With the run defense issues that we just saw, again, it wasn't a super big sample size for that small glimpse on that Saturday. Is it more like scheme that you maybe had an issue with, or was it the personnel that's on the field? And where does the issue start?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the scheme's going to be good. Joe Rossi's a good coach and a good defensive coordinator. I think he has some bodies that work well in a 3-4. So we're talking 3 down linemen, 4 linebackers. The way Rossi aligned him a lot was he had both of his outside linebackers in what you might call a 7 technique. So that's on the outside shoulder of the tackle. Well, it would be on the outside shoulder of the tight end, I suppose. But you have them kind of rolled down, kind of pinching in the ends of the line of scrimmage on the run surface. And then you have your 2 linebackers, which were Halliday.
I like that.
Yeah, Halliday.
Like that.
Works.
Yeah.
That works, right? That was on purpose. That was intentional.
That was nice.
You have Halliday and Hall standing up in the kind of middle of the field. So it looks like a 5-2 if you're just counting where people are on the different levels. And they used, I believe, Bogle quite a bit as kind of a stand-up, could put your hand in the dirt tweener. I called him in a 3-4. So you have bodies that work. I think Bogle's actually a fairly good body for that. I think when you have your outside linebackers rolled down like that, somebody like Hall, who's so athletic, there's still some issues, I think. And I know Rossi's coaching linebackers and he will have this figured out. You got to point him in the right direction sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
But linebackers devilishly hard to play. So I'm not overly concerned about that. I think he's a good fit. But when you're in you have 2 linebackers in kind of your second level to start the snap, I don't know if Halliday's a great fit. We saw last year, there's a lot of the tape is kind of out on Halliday, where in 21, I mean, that defense was quite good. And especially in the front 6 or 7, where he was able to be hidden, not hidden because he was good, but he was not asked to do things that were outside of his kind of skill set to a lesser extent in 22. And then last year the tape was out and people were putting tight ends on him and it got ugly. I think he's a good football player. He's hard-nosed, but he is somewhat athletically limited. I worry about that a little bit in this offense or in this defense. On the defensive line, I actually thought Harmon could be a decent nose tackle, but he has since departed.
Well, good for USC. Or Colorado or wherever he's going to go.
Whatever.
That's
yeah,
great for the Trojans. That's good.
Yeah, I do know they State picked up a defensive tackle and interior defensive lineman that they wanted quite badly. So, you'll have to see. Can you two gap in a 3-4? I don't know. We'll see. I don't pretend to kind of know how he projects. I haven't really looked into it that much. I'm sure we will as the summer goes on and start to flesh those things out. But the first play, the touchdown run from Nathan Carter, is a lot of what I talked about. Good job by the offensive line. Very clear about that. They did a good job. But both guards get a free release. You don't really want that if you're in a 3-4. You want to keep your linebackers clean. Both guards get a free release, and then Halliday and Hall just both get buried.
Yeah.
And then, you're one cut, make a guy miss, and that's 50 yards on your head. So I worry a lot about, kind of paradoxically, if you are Penn State and you're Michigan right now, you're thinking, I don't want to throw the ball at all. Because, if right now, the way it looks, if you're Michigan and Penn State and you get in 3rd and 8, you're dead.
Sure. Right.
So you're going to try to run the ball a lot, stay ahead of the sticks. And teams like that, where it's like they recruit well, they have talent, but they've got an issue at quarterback, they're just going to try to run the ball a lot. I worry about that in that narrow capacity. I do worry about that matchup. So I'm sure they will look more cohesive. They're going to look more connected. And also they have more bullets in the chamber. There's a lot as far as run blitzing and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
They put a couple of run blitzes on tape and they were extremely effective against zone. So that's out there. I think Rossi's a good coach. So it will look different in the fall, but that's kind of a little area of concern for me there. But it's not all bad news on the defense because, as we can talk about, I thought the back end looked pretty good. So
thank you, because that is the next question, probably the last question that we'll have here. But it's a really well thought out question. It's very long, so just bear with me here. In my notes, it just says pass defense.
Yeah.
So only way to go is up.
Yes, that
maybe.
Is
I guess.
It's interesting when you talk about zone defense and people, there's we're spot dropping, we're not pattern matching. Okay, that's fine. But even if you're spot dropping the way that most teams coach it, it's still not this kind of idea of this like Madden ass cover 2, where it's you have your circles and you're only worried about your circle. It's pass defense is so much more dynamic than that.
Okay.
It's so much more. I think it's extremely hard to do because it's to play zone. You've got to kind of have 3 eyes where you're looking at the quarterback, you're looking at who's in your zone, you're looking at who might be coming into your zone, who's behind you, who's coming out of the backfield, and then you have to pass these guys off. And you're not just standing in your little circle in the middle of your circle trying to guard people. It's you have to play man within your zone. I remember my 7th grade basketball coach telling us about how zone defense actually works, and my brain kind of exploding. It's when somebody's in your zone, you're playing man on him, and that's not entirely true when you have things like poach and stuff like that. But as a general rule, you are still playing defense on somebody when they come in your zone. And I thought they looked a lot more connected in the back end where people were getting passed off. And some catches got made, but guys were still in phase or there was pass breakups. There was tight coverage. In fact, I think one of the things that illustrated that the most to me, there was an out route against cover 2 where the apex player, so the linebacker, I think it was Hall's backup, you saw kind of, you count in. So sometimes you hear, if you're in cover 2, if number 2 goes vertical, that's the safety's responsibility. True. So this outside linebacker, whoever absorbed the responsibility of the outside linebacker, they call it the hook curl zone, was looking at number 2, you count in 1, 2, the slot receiver, I think it was a flexed out tight end, ran an out route. And you could tell the linebacker, the light bulb went off. He goes, okay, I'm not going to get dragged all the way over to the flat. We have a cornerback over there, but I need to address the fact that somebody is running an out route. So he hits him and it just kind of chucks him. And you do that to kind of knock him off his route, get the timing messed up. He didn't get a good contact on him where the linebacker linebacker just kind of shook it off and got a probably 8-yard out, turned it up for a first down, I think. But I was just kind of like, aha, like it's working. He understands that that's your role as the apex player. You got to chuck him and then get back to your zone towards the middle of the field and trust that somebody else is going to come up. And that's an easy coaching point for Rossi or whoever is on the sideline. Say, hey, just make sure when you hit him, you got to hit him. But it's just, you can see it's working, that there's cohesiveness, there's connection, there's communication. And I thought the back end looked a lot better. There was a little bit of sloppiness. I think, Dylan Tatum picked up a pass interference that he certainly did not need to. But it's a spring game and you're trying to make a play. I will not be mad about a safety being aggressive. I thought that, Tatum at safety, I think is just good for his career. I think that's what it should be. I think that coming out of safety or coming out of high school, I know a lot of people talked about him as a safety, and I think it says something good about him that he was willing to kind of roll down and play corner for the team. But I think he's where he should be, and I think it's going to be better for both the defense and him personally. So I thought the defense looked quite a bit better in the back end, and we're just going to have to see. They're 15 practices into a new regime, scheme. Want to give them a lot of grace there, but I saw a lot of stuff that I liked. So
hey, that's all we need to hear. You know what? Only way to goes up for the pass defense, but yeah, just like you said, like 15 practices, and this is something that Rossi talked about too. It's like we're trying to speed run through all this, but at the same time, take it slow. Contradictory statement, but like that's the best way to sum it up. Like
it's true. It's true. And I also think just with the transfer portal and losing those guys, there will be games this year where you're just, man, we can't fit this run, and we're getting cut to death 4 yards at a time. I think if that's not, then great. But I think there will be some probably very frustrating third quarters when it's just like these guys are fighting their tails off. They're just worn out.
Yeah.
But I really think that with this transfer portal stuff, you have a lot of guys who were brought in under Tucker. They kind of gave the new coaching staff a shot. And also sometimes the door goes both ways. I'm not saying I know this, certainly not. I have no intel, but it's certainly you don't want your 2 starting defensive linemen to leave. But if there are people who are not a culture fit, what does Smith talk about? Low ego, high output.
Sure.
If you came to the program under a different regime that was, I think we can all say, operating under a different ethos, and I don't think we need to expand upon that anymore.
Yeah.
There's going to be maybe a bit of a culture shift there. And I really think that Smith was so good at Oregon State about getting people who wanted to play for the school. It's maybe a little bit more than just, I have a great relationship with this coach, so I want to play here. And that's important. Don't get me wrong. And I think coaches can recruit, but getting people who bought into a program ethos of, hey, if you're coming here, you want to be here, and you're not getting rated. If 3 years from now, when I think State's going to be a lot more competitive, have a lot more depth, and you have a lot of Smith guys in, I would be stunned if they're still getting picked like that in spring. There's always going to be people who transfer and under the current
inevitable, right?
But it's not going to be like this. So I understand it's frustrating, but I have been continually reinforced in my position that MSU got the right guy with Smith, and that I think he is the right person for this job. It may not work out, but where college football is, where Michigan State is relative to the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I think this is the guy you want. And I'm very optimistic. The Michigan graduate in me, I have said before, he was the coach I didn't want you to hire. I really did not want him to get hired.
Look at us. Yeah.
So, it's and everything I've seen is like, this is in, 2 years, this is really going to suck. I'm not looking forward to this. It's probably not going to be fun. And just ask Oregon, right? I mean, Oregon knocked them this year, but they weren't having fun when Washington was playing in that rainstorm against Oregon State, and
not a great time.
Game with like 8 minutes left. They weren't having fun. So, I think it's the arrows up. It might be a little rocky at times, but I in no way think that that's going to at all be an indictment on the staff, on kind of their vision, on what they're doing. And I think it's working, and I think it's going to work.
There we go, folks. That's Chase Glasser. Always a sensational chat with you, my man. Doing great work over at Spartans Illustrated. Again, go over there, subscribe, see all the hard work from Chase, Ryan Blenis, the whole gang. Yeah, that's right, man. But Folks, until next time, speaking of Spartans Illustrated, we will be chatting with Ryan O'Blennis here in the very near future. But until then, take care of yourselves, everyone. Love you all.